stop what you're doing right now. Do not summon on Firefly. Or maybe pull on her. That's what we're going to be talking about in today's video, guys. Whether you should or should not be pulling for Firefly. All of her pros, all of her cons. I think she has more cons than pros at this point, but we'll get into that later in the video. This video will get dislike bomb, so make sure you leave a like on the video and maybe subscribe as well. So with that being said, guys, let's get into one of the most Kuma-baited characters in Honkai Star Rail, Firefly. Bet you guys liked that thumbnail, didn't you? Alright, gamers, so the first thing I want to talk about in today's video is actually going to be the pieces that she's going to be needing to actually function in a team, or just to function in general as a character. And what I like to do for every single DPS or character in the game, I like to break it down in the most general way possible, guys. What do every single character in the game need? First of all, they need teammates. What teammates can they work with? And secondly, guys, gear investment. How much investment do you need to put into one character or the said character to actually make them function? So the first thing we should talk about, teammates, right? What teammates does she need to have, like absolutely must have on her team to make her function? How many options of those does she have versus the optional characters that you can sub in on teams to make different team comps? Like if we would have put Boot Hill on there, Himiko on there, Rappa on there as an example here to make her a dual break DPS team. I do think that's a great point to start off on, guys, is the optional characters you can run. Like I mentioned, Himiko, Boot Hill, Rappa, they can all be ran in a team with her on a dual DPS team or a dual break PS team, as I like to call it. But these are not the only optional options that she has, guys. Gallagher, optional. You don't need to have him on the team, but he does help the team out tremendously. Ling Shaw, don't need to have her on the team, but she does help the team out tremendously with the extra break vulnerability you're putting on the enemy, the amount of time she's able to send her little minions out and break the enemy as well. She works with the fire weakness implant that Firefly is going to have. We'll touch more on her kit after this. Ruan Mei, I actually do think Ruan Mei is quite optional, because if you're running her in a dual break PS team, then you don't necessarily would want to run Ruan Mei on that team, because you really don't have the room unless you're running a sustainless build. Same thing can be said with March 7th. She can work. Hua Hua gives attack buff and energy, which will ultimately help out the energy of Firefly, but realistically you're also getting the attack buff from Hua Hua as well, which directly impacts the amount of break effect she's going to have. Zhao Cho puts vulnerability on the enemy, which is going to inflate the amount of damage that Firefly is able to do. But this does lead us now into the needs. What characters does she need on her team to function? She's going to need Harmony MC or Fugue. You could run both of them on the same team and get a great effect, but she is going to need at least one of these characters on the team, one of these two on the team, to make her function. Why is that, you might ask? Because both of these offer super bright damage. The majority of her damage, the big chunk of her damage, if we were to put this into a pie chart, it would look something like this right here, guys. This area right here, guys, that I'm marking in, this is going to be the super bright damage that she's doing. This is the damage reliant on her super bright. This other little chunk up here, which would probably be like 5% of her damage, maybe that's a little bit of a low argument to take there, but this would be the rest of the damage she's able to do, guys. So I mean, you do need one of these characters to work. So now that we know she needs Harmony MC or Fugue on the team, what can this mean for the future development of your account, right? Since she needs one of these characters, if you plan on pulling for the new meta, the new 3.0 meta, right, which is going to be like the new Remembrance Pass summons and stuff like that. If you've started playing the game recently, you don't have anything built up, that is probably going to be the meta you're falling into anyways. But what does that meta provide to you? Yes, another free-to-play character, which is going to be Remembrance MC. If Remembrance MC is as good as Harmony MC was, if they're equal in value on the prospective teams they work on, right, that means you're probably realistically going to be running Remembrance MC with this new meta, because that's what all the new content's going to be catering to. That's what all the new in-game's going to be catering to, probably, is this new Remembrance path we're getting in the game right now. This means you're probably going to end up using Remembrance MC on Remembrance-esque teams, because that's what the in-game content is structured towards. Meaning, guys, you no longer have Harmony MC to work with on this team, meaning if you want her to function, if you want your Firefly, your cute girly over here to function, that means you're going to have to pull Fugue. This is going to be a must pull for your account. So if you don't plan on pulling for Fugue and you're a newer player coming into the game that maybe only has break characters on your account right now, realistically you're probably going to be kerfuckled into pulling for this new Remembrance path, which leads to, like I just said, must pull over here on Fugue's part. So if you don't pull for Fugue, if you don't plan on pulling for Fugue, you're a newer player, this would be like grounds for not even pulling for her at all, just because of the fact you'll be using that Remembrance MC on one side at all times for the in-game content. If the in-game content is structured towards Remembrance, which, let's not cope here, it will probably be structured towards Remembrance rather than Break. I think we're going to start seeing a tapering off of the Break meta. We'll talk more about that later on in the video, but overall, that's how I see it working, guys. For the must-have units that you're going to need for her to actually function, there are only 2 of those, and one of those is probably going to be going away for the newer and maybe better meta. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about gear investment. So this is very simple, guys. You're going to be needing a new 4-piece of the Iron Cavalry set, and you're going to be needing a 2-piece of the new Forge set right now. this is going to be a completely new set that you're going to be wanting to farm for her. So that means if you have not farmed for either of these sets in the past, then you have a lot of farming to do, because you do need some pretty specific stats on her to actually make this work. To quickly go over what both of these sets do though, guys, is we can go ahead and hop over here to the relics on Pride one real quick to kind of see what they do, so I can explain to you why they're so good. First of all, guys, the planner set, which is the Forge set, it gives her 6% speed and an extra 40% break effect whenever you're hitting a fire weak enemy, which she is always going to be hitting. This is tailor-made for her. This is 100% needed for her. And then let's get into the Iron Cavalry set here, guys. It's first of all going to be increasing your break effect by 16%, which is what every other single break set does in the game. But on top of this, guys, if your break effect is over 250%, you will be getting up to 25% defense ignore, which will skyrocket her damage because she's already doing so much break damage. She already has so much super break in her kit. She already has some type of break vulnerability you're putting on the enemy. This compounds super well that to absolutely skyrocket her damage even more. So this is an absolute necessity to have. I do not recommend running any other break set on her because there is a pretty large damage fall off when running those other sets. So after reviewing that set, what are the things that she needs based off of that set alone, guys? She needs at least 250% break effect here to actually make her function based off of the Iron Cavalry set right here. But the fun doesn't stop there, guys, because we can also look at something like her major trace, right, where a lot of her damage is going to be coming from, because this is what provides her with at least 50% super break damage. She is going to be needing actually 360% break effect to actually get the extra 50% super break damage. So you can kind of just throw this 250% marker out the window. Oh, you thought you needed 250%? No, you need 360% break effect on your Firefly to actually get the maximum buffs off possible. And you do want the extra 50% super break damage, because without the 360%, your damage starts falling significantly. Now, the one plus side with this, right? This is an in-battle number that you need to be reaching, guys. So this doesn't need to be the number you're reaching before you actually enter the battle. Not only this, guys, she's gonna be needing a lot of speed as well, guys. But if you don't have Ruama in the team, you're gonna need around 150 speed. If you have Ruama in the team, you need like 141 speed, because she's gonna be giving an extra 10% buff to your speed. So you actually do need quite a bit of speed on her as well. Not only this, guys, you're gonna be needing a lot of attack on her too. Why do you need a lot of attack on her? You can take a look at something like this in her kit right here, guys. For every 10 points of attack that exceeds 1800, you increase her break effect by 0.8%. Not only this, guys, whenever you're in her enhanced state here, you're gonna be getting extra break effect from the actual enhanced skill itself whenever you're in the combustion state based off the amount of attack you have. So you do need a lot of attack with her as well. If you have pretty average luck, what you're going to be needing on every single piece here, guys, is going to be speed, break effect, and then also attack as well. So you're going to be wanting to aim for at least 3 substats with almost every single piece of your gear. And that kind of leads me to this point here, guys, the investment for new and old players. If you're a new player coming to the game, guys, there's going to be a lot different investment than there is if you're an older player coming into the game and you kind of already have this stuff built up, right? So if you're a new player coming to the game, guys, this is what your investment is going to look like right here, right? So if we take a look at my current break team right here, right? If you're just getting into the break meta, right? Say you had Harmony MC in your account, then you have Firefly in your account, and maybe you have a Gallagher in your account as well, right? You're talking, you're going to probably need to farm up at least 3 relic sets, right? Like, you don't have to farm up this set right here, right? But you're going to be farming up at least 3 of these break sets here. And if you have 4 break characters, that's going to be 4 whole break sets you're having to farm up with decent stats on every single one of these pieces here. For your main DPS, you obviously want to be aiming for the highest stats possible, but you're going to be farming a lot of gear with a lot of RNG involved with all this gear, versus if your account was structured based off of like a crit based DPS, right? If we take someone like, I don't know, like an Acheron or a Topaz or a follow-up team, for example, right? Like, you're focusing mainly on crit rate, crit damage there, and your supports can kind of like interchange the sets that they're using on them. Whereas with a break team, you kind of want the breaks on every single character, right? There's not much interchangeability within sets that you can actually run like on another support character you have on your account, and then swap that over to these break supports or break sustains or anything like that, right? Now, that being said, if you're an older player and already have some of the break meta built up, this should be pretty obvious to you. You can literally just swap sets around within the break category here. Like, if I want to run Rappa, I'd be like, oh, let's just grab my Firefly gear here and run Rappa on the team now, because I'm going to use Rappa for this scenario. So I'm going to just swap my gear around here. Oh, look at that. now my Rappa's built out because I just swapped all the gear off the other character, and it works here too. So there's two sides of a coin here. If you're just starting out with the break class, there's a lot of upfront investment that you need. Like bare minimum, you're going to be needing to farm at least 3 gear sets for this break team, which is just a lot of resin investment up front, and that's not even mentioning going in and farming for like XP, light cones, trace materials, anything like that. There is just a lot of upfront investment if you're a new player coming to the game and pulling for this meta. Now, with the majority of my slander for Firefly out the way, I do still think that she is still the overall best break PS in the game. I think she's better than someone like Booty Hill, guys. I also think she's going to be better than someone like a Rappa as well, because I think she gives herself a lot of free things that they don't necessarily give themselves, and she can work in more scenarios than these other ones can work. Why? Because first of all, guys, one of the big things she does is she's able to actually convert the enemy's weakness into a fire weakness, meaning you are always going to be hitting the toughness type on the enemy with her on the field. She gives herself free break effect here. She gives herself free break effect based off the amount of attack you have. She gives herself a lot of free stats. But that doesn't stop there, guys. She's giving herself free speed. She's increasing the amount of damage that enemies are going to be receiving. She gives herself increased weakness break efficiency. Her talent is going to give her more survivability by giving her a 40% damage reduction, and then also increased effect res as well. Her enhanced skill attack scales off of her attack percentage here, and not to mention, guys, she's also hitting multiple targets at one time. Almost every single one of her attacks is blast type damage, and then also if you want to invest even further than that with her and go for like extra eidolons and stuff like that, I mean, the eidolons she has are really good too. Like the first eidolon makes her more SP efficient, ignores an extra 15% of defense, which also compiles with the defense reduction you're getting from the set she's running. And then at E2, guys, she basically gets a free turn every single time you kill an enemy. Like, there is a lot of different like small investments you can make, especially if you plan on pulling for dupes with her if you're an older player, that will provide you with a lot of benefits. So overall, I do think she is the best break PS in the game. But that does lead me into the final point of my video here, which is break fears. Now, guys, a lot of people always tell me I'm copying for this take. I don't care. I don't care. This is a point that needs to be brought up. This is a point that is probably going to happen in the future. Guys, break scares me so much. The reason why break scares me so much is you do no damage if you can't break the enemy, right? No damage for no break, right? If you cannot break that enemy, you are not doing any damage to that enemy, and that's one of the biggest fears that I have here. If they start implementing enemies into the game that you cannot break, or B, have so many different bars of toughness to break down to actually get to the point of them breaking that enemy and then doing damage within that short time frame you have while they're still broken, that is very scary to me, because these characters are not doing damage outside of break, right? You can take Boot Hill, you can take Rappa, like these characters, if you're not breaking the enemy, you're not really doing damage to the enemy. So with that being said, guys, that's what really scares me about going full set into the break category here, because you're already putting so much investment into these break type characters, whether that be relics, whether that be vertical investment, whether that be horizontal investment. None of these break characters really matter at all outside of Ruan Mei, maybe, that kind of helps with break but not is subjected to breaks, like Fugue or Harmony MC or really any other break character you have. If you can't break the enemy, their value goes out the window. Their value, they're useless, okay? That's my biggest problem with them, right? And that kind of compiles with like the vertical investment we just talked about, guys. Like a lot of this vertical investment here only helps them out with their super break damage. It doesn't give them an extra damage source outside of super break. So you're still feeding completely into this one damage type here that can be so easily countered if the devs decide they want to counter it, right? They're going into this new remembrance path. So obviously they're going to be buffing that up, but who's to say that they don't nerf break in the process? I am very scared whenever they add an enemy into the game that cannot be broken, or enemies that have bigger toughness bars that take longer to break, that gives you less damage window to actually do damage on the enemy, because if the enemy gets back up and then gets that toughness bar back up without you being able to CC them for longer, to stay in that state for longer, their damage falls off the window, and the break category as a whole just falls off a fucking map. So that really scares me. So at the end of the day, guys, the big question you're asking, should you or should you not be pulling for Firefly? Honestly, there's no way in hell that I think she's a must pull. I think she can work in a lot of scenarios. I think she's really good for early game players as well, just because you do get Harmony MC for free. That's really the only requirement that I would say that she has on a team outside of like Remembrance MC. But if you're just going through the game, right, I think if you're early game to mid game, she'll carry through all the content. Now when you get into the in game, I still think she can help out with the content there. There's just a lot of farming involved with getting the full team set up, and then also the break fears like I mentioned before. If they introduce something in the game that cannot be broken, you have just eliminated one of your teams. If you're a mid-game player, early game player, this means you're not being the in-game content if they introduce that. because one of your teams has been eviscerated. That means you would have had to pull or built up a third team that could beat down or beat the ass of enemies that can't be broken, right? And that is also going to require more vertical investment with the HP inflation that we currently have in the game. Yeah, there's a lot more investment overall, right? So, do I think she's a must pull? Absolutely not. I don't think you should pull on her. I think you should probably just skip her and wait for 3.0 and wait for that meta, because all the in-game content is going to be structured towards that meta. I really don't like pulling for rerun characters, usually because they've already been power crept in some way, shape, or form, or they're going to be power crept in the near future. That's why, unless it's like a support that's like really, really good, like Ruan Mei, right? I still think Ruan Mei is really universal and can be used across most teams, whereas she can only be ran on break teams with a Fugue or a Harmony MC. If you don't have either of those characters, her damage is out the fucking window, and it's over with for you, buddy, okay? Anyways, that's all I have to say for today's video. Are you pulling for Firefly, or are you not pulling for Firefly? Let me know in the comment section down below. Anyways, that's gonna do it for today's video. Hopefully you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one later. Bye-bye.